Well, hey there, everybody. It's your boy, Mr. Perry, and here we are kicking things off with Unit 1, Lesson 1. We're actually going to cover Lesson 1 and Lesson 2 in today's video because quite a bit of this is just kind of review and really kind of easy, basic introductory stuff. So let's go ahead and get into it. First thing I want to do is for just to kind of lay down a few expectations for everybody. First off, it's really important to know going into this that if you took AP Computer Science Principles and if you found it pretty easy, that's awesome. But I do want to caution you that Java is a little bit more challenging. And there are a lot of skills that are going to be expected of you on the AP exam that were not expected of you in Computer Science Principles. So I just want to emphasize it's crucial that you practice. Repetition is going to be very important, and our class time is going to be sacred. It's going to be very important that you are engaged with Java as much as possible and that you can take it as far as possible while you're in the class in order to make sure that you are thoroughly prepared for the exam. Part of becoming ready for that exam is becoming familiar with the vocabulary that's in Java. Again, there's quite a bit more vocab that is involved with the AP CSA class. So just make sure that you're studying your vocabulary however best suits your learning style, like maybe developing your own note cards, or of course there are Quizlets, and I'll be sharing some GIM kits with you and all that. And then finally, writing original Java code is also crucial to passing the AP exam. Particularly with your FRQs, you'll have 4 free response questions that will require you to write original Java code off the top of your head using just a few relatively basic resources. So we will practice often in class, but you are encouraged to write out sample class files and practice writing methods from time to time, and to make sure that you're sharing them with me for feedback. All right, so we're gonna get into just some real kind of basic stuff about Java with Lesson 1. So Java is a widely used high-level programming language. So you might want to think back to AP CSP and try to remember what does it mean for a programming language to be high-level. So you might want to pause the video real quick and just read through this little bit of code that you see right here from a sample Java program, and then see if you can if you can make an educated guess what you think this program is designed to do. So assuming that you paused the video and you looked things over, you probably were able to figure out that this is most likely a program that is designed for ordering Girl Scout cookies. And that's because this is a high-level programming language. What that means is it has a lot of abstraction. You should be able to read through the program code, and you might not understand every single line of code, and you might not understand every single word that you see, but you should be able to read through it and fairly easily make an educated guess as to what you think the program is designed to do. And that's because it's a high-level programming language. It's designed to be user-friendly and relatively easy to read and understand. So there you go. Java was created in 1995. In 2003, the College Board changed our class to be a Java-based class, and that's because Java was just becoming so widely used throughout industry. And many famous programs have been created in Java, including Android phones, Netflix, and of course there's tons of stuff in Minecraft that is Java related. So very widely used. Java is a very efficient programming language, meaning it does a really good job of not wasting computer memory and resources in order to run its programs. And you're going to see that this actually plays into a lot of our programming. I will very often, make reference to the efficiency of Java, and it's because of how the programming language is designed and how your commands are going to be written. Compared to Python, Java is a little more challenging to learn, but it is similar in many ways. So if you're coming into the class with background in Python, it's definitely going to pay off, but you will notice some differences. And so as you learn Java, pay attention to what is the same as what you learned in Python, as well as what is different. And this will help I think, significantly with the learning process. Couple of just really, really important things to know about any Java program. Java programs need what's called a main method as well as a class file in order to run. So for your summer homework, you became a little bit familiar with this. Here we have our main method right here in the myprogram.java file. And this, of course, is where the Java program is going to start. Any Java program always begins with the main method. This is where the compiler goes first and says, all right, what am I supposed to do? And then, of course, we created the pet class, right? And so we had to create a pet class file, and then we had to create a pet class. So this is your pet class, and then this is your main method. Again, both of those things are needed in order to make a program run. Sometimes a main method can be embedded in a class. So here you can see this is a tic-tac-toe game, and it is in the tic-tac-toe Java file. Here's your class, public class tic-tac-toe. But then you'll notice the first thing that it has is a main method. So sometimes the main method is in a completely separate class, as in the case that you see here. You've got your pet class over here, and then in a completely separate class, there is our main method. But then you can also do it this way. You can have a class file that also includes the main method. So there's no need, in this case, there wouldn't be a need to have multiple files open. So you'll probably experiment with this, and you'll probably do this in both ways throughout the class. Just be aware that both methods will run. Okay. So class files typically include the following things: a class header, private instance variables, a constructor, which is what's called a method, a constructor method, and then various other methods such as get and set methods, your toString method, and anything else that you decide to program. And we will be practicing this throughout the class. You'll get really good, hopefully, at writing classes. And then, of course, whenever we're going to write a class, we have this handy-dandy thing called a UML that we can use to represent the class. So we would have its name, we would list the attributes that, what do all objects of that class share or have in common, and then, of course, the behaviors. What can all objects of that class do? So a UML is just a diagram that we can use to kind of plan out a class file. All right, well, now let's get into lesson 2, and let's get into some practical stuff here with why program in Java. All right, well, we'll start by talking about class files and our main method. So class file names must begin with a capital letter, and they must end with .java. And then when you begin writing the class itself, class files always begin with these 3 words: public, class, and then the name of the class. You'll also have a set of curly braces that wrap the entire program code, and then all of your code would go in between those 2 curly braces. You want to use what's called Pascal case when naming a class file, and then when writing the class header. Pascal case is similar to camel case, which is what we use when we name variables. But Pascal case is different because the first word also gets capitalized. So a good example of this, we'll look at some examples of some class files. So here we've got an album class. So it's called album.java, that's your file name. And then the class itself is public class album, right? And you want to make sure that whatever you have here matches what you have here. It's very important that those 2 things match up in order to work. So here's another one that actually contains an error. Let's say you had a class file that was intended to store the information from a student questionnaire. So let's say they used student questionnaire as the name for the Java file, but let's say when they wrote the class, they called it students. Because students does not match student questionnaire, then this would cause an error. So the name of the class file and the class header must match for the code to compile. But you do see right here them using Pascal case, the capital S and then the capital Q for questionnaire. This is what Pascal case looks like. But then you would just need to use Pascal case down here as well. It should say public class student questionnaire in order for this to compile and work. Now let's talk about the main method. One of the most famous lines of code in all of Java programming is the main method, and it always begins with public static void main, and then in parentheses string with these square brackets, and then args. So that's really all you need to know. You just need to recognize this. Like, you don't need to know what all of these things mean yet. You should just be able to see this and say, oh, well, here's my main method. So this is where I need to write my code in order to make anything happen. All right, now we're going to look at how do I get text to appear on the screen. So you have two print commands. You have system.out.print, which will print out the text without advancing to the next line. So think about what will be the output of these two lines of code. You've got system.out.print hello, and then system.out.print students. So maybe pause the video for a second here and think about what is this going to look like when I run it. And we're going to go ahead and see what that looks like. And this is what it's going to do. It's going to print hello, but because you just used a system.out.print statement without ln on it, it's going to just print the text without advancing to the next line. So it prints hello and then stops right here. And then when you get to your next one that says system.out.print students, it just continues to print from there. So you just get hello students. So that's what that looks like. Now if you instead write system.out.println, then that's going to print the text and then automatically move to the next line. So once again, you feel free to pause it and read through this code and make an educated guess as to what you think it's going to look like. But what will be the output? System.out.println, or I like to say print line because it's just kind of, it's easier to say, hello, and then system.out.print students. Again, feel free to pause the video and see if you can guess what that's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and just move on here and we'll have a look. This time you get hello and then it goes down to the next line and then it prints students. So that's one of the main differences. Well, that's one of the main things you need to learn in this lesson is just the difference between system.out.print versus system.out.println. By the way, when you print items and you put them in quotation marks, this is what's called a string literal. Anything that comes in between this quotation mark and that quotation mark is what's called a string literal, and that's because it's going to like any key on your keyboard that you press, whether or not it's letters of the alphabet or whether or not it's numbers or even symbols, any character that you put in between your quotation marks will be treated as a string. And so again, those are called string literals. All right, and then let's go ahead and talk about errors in Java. So you can get what's called a syntax or a compile time error, which basically means the Java compiler is attempting to make sense of the code that you wrote. But while it was compiling and turning this high-level programming language into machine code, it experienced an error. So you typed something incorrectly and Java doesn't understand it. So you've created a bug in your program. And you can think of them as grammar errors, especially with Java. There's a lot of potential to make errors, syntax errors in Java. So for instance, right here, here's our main method, and I'm just trying to print out some sample text. So I got system.out.println, open parentheses, open quote, sample text. Here's my closing parenthesis, closing quote, my closing parentheses. The problem is I forgot a semicolon. So I need a semicolon at the end of any print statement. And so this is the error I get. And notice it does have some helpful information. It tells you the name of the class. So it's myprogram.java. So it actually tells you the file myprogram.java. It also gives you an idea, or it tells you what line the error takes place. It says line 5, so you can see, okay, line 5 is the one that's got the error. And then it's also saying, hey, I'm expecting a semicolon here. And it even gives you this little arrow, this little caret saying it's probably supposed to go right there. And that's true. So that's how you read an error message. And you'll get a lot of those, so just, be ready for it. And then finally, how do we add comments? We hopefully remember from computer science principles that adding documentation is really important for your programs. And so to add comments, typically you're just going to use // your forward slash and your forward slash, which would allow you to type whatever. And that would be a single line comment. Now, if you had a lot of comments that you needed to type, then you might need more than one line to do it. So you would do what's called a multi-line comment. So in that case, you do /*, and then you would type in whatever you need to type in, and then you close it with the opposite, star, and then /. So this is what documentation looks like. Up here you see /*, this program allows blah, 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 blah. And then //, that's the end of the multi-line comment. And then down here you see this class file being created, and then // class header. So these are where the person is leaving all of the comments. So those are all single line comments. All right, so quick lesson review here. The name of class files must match the class header. And with Java, we're going to be using Pascal case a little bit more frequently than perhaps you did with computer science principles. But when you're naming your class files and when you're writing your class headers, you use Pascal case if it's more than one word. It's important to recognize the difference between system.out.print versus system.out.println. You got to get used to the basic syntax of Java in order to reduce your syntax errors. And then now you know how to comment with your /* and then */ combination, or just your two / lines. All right, guys, well, we're to the point here where it's time for you to post a question, a comment, or an observation. So anytime we finish a video, please jump back on Classroom and leave a question, a comment, or an observation about the lesson's main ideas. Remember, we will use these to review the video at the start of class, so please keep your responses appropriate and thoughtful. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in class.